Hello, I'm Vincent Price. In this series of programs, I hope to take you around the world using your cooker instead of a jet plane. I'm going to cook for you some dishes that my wife and I have collected on our travels here and there, and which I hope you're going to try yourselves. Now, what I hope to show you is that no matter how outlandish the dishes might sound to you, or how out of the way the places they come from, they are all really quite simple. All you really need is a cooker, ingredients that you can get at your neighborhood shops or supermarkets, and a willingness to try something a little bit different. Take the dishes we're going to make today. They're all made from an obscure little vegetable that was discovered in Peru by the conquistadores in about 1531. Before that, this strange vegetable had been used in mystic Inca rites, and human blood was used to fertilize the ground that they were planted in. Fortunately, we use something else today. Now, this magical food was brought to Europe by a monk returning from Peru in about 1570. Soon, because it wasn't immediately forbidden, and of course they even allowed tobacco in from the New World, this vegetable was seen growing in Italy, Austria, Switzerland, and France. In 1578, though here the historical records are not entirely in agreement, Drake, or was it Hawkins, or was it Raleigh, brought the Inca secret to Britain. The British have eaten it with practically everything ever since. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is it, the potato. Now, this one I have here is peeled, and I'm going to slice it very thinly, as I have done with a whole bunch of other ones. Now, it goes into this miraculous modern slicer, and we slice it up very quickly, and you have a whole box of sliced potatoes. Now, here are about 8 potatoes that I've sliced, and with its fellows, I'm going to put it on the stove. And I've started some boiling salted water, which I'm going to put them all in. Get in there now. And they are on their boiling water. I'm going to bring it to a boil. And this dish, which I'm going to make now, well, I found it high in the Italian Alps. And it is called pomme de terre savoyarde. When the potatoes have cooked, I'm going to turn them into something really delicious for today's entree. But it takes about 3 minutes. In that time, I'm going to make some soup. Now, this one is called Manhattan Vichyssoise. It's a recipe that comes from New York City, and it's the sort of thing that you serve straight from the fridge. Again, we have potatoes. This time, 12 ounces of them, peeled and diced. And I'm going to put them into a blender here. 12 ounces of potatoes, and here we have 6 ounces of sliced carrots, and here we have 1 leek that has been sliced too. And into it we're going to add a pint of chicken stock. Now, that's all you need, by the way. Now, I'm going to take them from here just for a minute because I have something else I want to do with them, and put them in here first and pour in my chicken stock. My chicken stock goes into that. Now, don't worry if you didn't get all of the ingredients, because I'm going to be repeating them at the end of the program. So I will tell them all to you then. Don't worry. Now, I'm going to put all of these, as I have done, in the saucepan onto the stove, and I'm going to boil and simmer them for about 25 minutes, or at least until the vegetables are tender. Now, as it happens, and this is one of the modern miracles of television, I have a pan here on the stove in which all of those self-same ingredients have been cooking away for 25 minutes. There they are, all ready. Now, the next thing we have to do is to puree this lot in the blender where I measured them out earlier, and we'll puree them, and I'll show you how you do that. You put on the lid, otherwise you will have a brand new paint job in your kitchen. You put them on low first, and then switch them to high. Now don't worry if you don't happen to have a blender, because what you can do is put them all through a sieve. It's a lot harder work and it takes a lot longer, but it works perfectly well. Now, I'm going to use this group right now, and I'm going to stir in just a little bit of pepper. White pepper I like, though that's black pepper. And I'm going to put in a pinch of salt, like that. And then I'm going to put in a half pint of rich cream. Now that I blend once again on the low speed. Now that I am going to put into the fridge for a couple of hours to really chill it off. As it so happens, once again, thanks to the modern miracle of television, I have some that has been in the fridge for exactly the right amount of time, and here it is. Isn't it lovely? I'm now going to pour it into these beautiful soup bowls. There's one. And there is two, and I'm going to sprinkle over the top of that just a little grated carrot. It's for decoration, and also it is very delicious to crunch the carrots as you drink the cold, cold soup. Now that is really a very simple, and it's a great way to use potatoes. There it is, Manhattan Vichyssoise from New York. And I suspect somehow via Vichy. Well, so much for the soup. Now back to the entree. When we last saw the pomme de terre savoyarde, it was 8 sliced potatoes boiling away in salted water for 3 minutes. Well, the time has come here to change all that. But first, I'm going to butter a baking dish. Here, I'm going to butter it. And then I am going to rub a clove of garlic around it. Now you can do that if you like garlic. I happen to love garlic, so I'm going to rub the clove very thoroughly around the inside of the dish and on the bottom, all around it. There, the garlic in the butter, it just gives a very delicate flavor. Did you realize, ladies and gentlemen, that the English eat 198 pounds of potatoes per person per year? Well, it's true. And believe it or not, they are not the most prolific users of the potato. But they were the first to see their true value. For instance, during the reign of Charles II, which, as every English schoolchild knows, lasted from 1660 to 1685, the Royal Society recognized the potato's food value and recommended large quantities should be grown in case of war or famine. Now, I take my potatoes off of the stove and I drain them here in the sink. Get all the water off so that they're nice and dry. Sometimes it's not a bad idea to put them back on the fire for just a second so they dry out, but I don't have time to do that. And so I am going to take them out of here and put them into our dish. Spread them in the bottom of this baking dish, which has been greased and garlicked, if you can say garlicked. Go save a few there, got carried away a bit. And then I'm going to sprinkle over the top of them some grated cheese. I have here about 4 ounces of it. I'm going to put 2 ounces on there. Spread it all around. Get them nice and even. so that all of your potatoes will have the cheese flavor when the dish is finished. Then I put another layer of potatoes on top of that and spread them out a little bit and add the rest of the cheese. Now, I prefer a good, strong cheddar cheese, but any grateable cheese can be used. Now, on top of that, we put a cup of real rich cream. A cup of it, it's equal to about a pint. Spread it all over again. Don't just put it in the bottom. Spread it all over like that. Then you take it and you put it on the stove where we're going to bring it to a boil and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Now, I'm going to let that simmer, in fact, till nearly the end of the program. So you may have to wait for a little while, but there it is. At the end of it, you will learn the end of the saga of the Italian entree. Now, our next dish I found in Holland. It's called fish fillets Noordzee. Now, much of Holland, as all of you know, is below sea level. And the reason that the sea doesn't swamp the land is that it's kept out by a truly remarkable system of dikes, which have been, well, they've been put up for many, many centuries. Now a dike is simply a sea wall. Now, into this piping bag, I have put some mashed potatoes in which there is cream and butter, enough to make it good and soft. And I'm going to tell you about this dish because it is a celebration of the whole fact of Holland and its system of dikes. Around here, I'm going to put a wall or a dike of potatoes. Make it as pretty as you want, and spread it around there like that. Make it neat. Then you run a line right straight down the center. A nice straight line. And then in one of them, you make a little compartment. 4 compartments, as a matter of fact. And I'll tell you why about that later. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have our imitation of Holland. The fish that goes between the walls symbolizes the sea. And most of the fish portions I've prepared to save time. But I want to show you how to poach the fish. In this case, it's plaice. Because the juice in which it is going to be cooked or poached, we're going to use for our sauce later on. Now, into this, I have put, or I am going to put, 4 fillets of plaice. And to these, I'm going to add half a pint of water and half a pint of very nice, dry white wine. White wine. The juice of 1 lemon, which I have already squeezed here, and a quarter of a tablespoon of, well, no, quarter of a teaspoon, I think is better, of white pepper and some salt. Just a little bit of salt, and here's my pepper. Now, you poach this for about 5 minutes, and then it will look like this. These are the poached fillets of plaice. Now, you take out the plaice very gently because they're very delicate. You place them in the big island, lap them over very prettily, place them there, and get your last one out and place it there. I'm going over here and turn down my potatoes just a little bit. Now, after that, the liquid that we have boiled our fish in, we are going to make into our sauce. Over the heat, I have taken this sauce and reduced it until it came out to be about a quarter of a pint. And here I have in a saucepan 2 beaten eggs, 1 tablespoonful of flour, and a half a pint of cream. Now into this mixture I pour some of the fish juice. Now this must cook for about 2 minutes. And so I'm going to put it on very high, stir it all of the time, because we don't want the sauce to burn, but we do want it to thicken very slightly. But be sure not to let it boil. You remember I told you that the British were not alone in their adoration of the potato. Several years ago, my wife and I were down in Peru, and we really had some extraordinary potato treats. In the first place, we were made very conscious of the fact that the potato did not come from Idaho, where we grow most of ours in the United States, or from Ireland. They came originally from Peru, and the Peruvians never let you forget it. I remember one day in a very glamorous restaurant, I thought I would order a dish that sounded wonderful, a kind of potato salad with an exotic Inca name to it. And it arrived at the table, and what it was a boiled potato of a very special kind, they led me to believe, because it was a sort of pale yellow. Now, it wasn't a sweet potato, it was a boiled potato, but pale yellow, and on it was a lovely little garnish of mayonnaise. It was a very exciting taste because it was one that I had never experienced before. The potato was something very special. Now, the Germans of Offenburg, Baden, why, they erected a statue to Drake with a potato flower in his hand, and they described him as a benefactor of Europe. This showed that they had at least decided then which side of this earlier controversy they were on. King Louis XVI of France introduced a new fashion into his country. He went around wearing a buttonhole of potato flowers. Now, there's an interesting fact to remember about potatoes when you go to buy them. Buy the ones kept at the back of the store, out of the way of frost and direct sunlight. This is because they store better in a dark place. Now, into this, I'm going to stir another 1/4 teaspoonful of salt. Take it over here. Put a little bit more salt in it, and then a little dash of lemon juice. Again, about a tablespoonful. The lemon juice makes it delicious, and as we all know, lemons go marvelously with any fish dish. Now I'm going to pour it very gently over the fish, over the place, and there we really have a sea of place. Now, all these other fillings for the 4 little compartments here I've already cooked, but it's a very easy process, so I'm not trying to trick you. Each one has very simply been fried for 5 minutes in a little butter. That's all. There are 4 ounces each of shrimp, herring roe, and button mushrooms and scallops. Now I'm going to put some of these into each one of our little islands. They're the button mushrooms. One of them slipped over into the place of the shrimp. I'll put the shrimp in this next little island. And then I'll put the scallops in the next one. And the roe goes into the last one. There we have it. And I think it is a really beautiful dish. Now, we've got this dish all finished, and that's our main dish. We've cooked our vichyssoise. Well, no, we've got one more thing. The entree is still to come. What will it turn out like? Well, keep watching. So, in the meantime, let's recap the Manhattan vichyssoise. For it, we used 12 ounces of peeled diced potatoes, 6 ounces of sliced carrots, 1 leek chopped up, and I would use only the white part, save the rest for some stock later on, and 1½ pints of chicken stock, a pinch of white pepper, and 1 teaspoon of salt and a ½ pint of cream. Now don't forget to serve it icy cold with a sprinkling of grated carrots on the top. For the main course, the fish fillet Nordsee. Here we used 4 medium mashed potatoes with a little bit of cream and butter in them to put them into our pastry bag. And then for our sauce, we used 2 eggs, there they are, 1 tablespoonful of flour, ½ a pint of cream, some salt, and a tablespoon of lemon juice, a ¼ pint of the liquid which was left after fixing the fish. And we cooked the fish in ½ a pint of water, ½ a pint of dry wine, and the juice of 1 lemon and salt and pepper. Now inside the walls of the potato, we've put the plaice, the mushrooms, the shrimps, the herring roe, and the scallops. All of them are right there. Now for the entree. Does it work? Well, yes, it does. And here it is, another triumph. I think it looks perfectly beautiful. All of the juice is melting down and the cheese is all melted together. Now we put it under the grill for a little while until it browns. Watch it very carefully because you don't want it to burn. You remember that I told you that this was an Italian entree. Well, of course, the sharper wits among you will have immediately noticed that pomme de terre Savoyard is a French name and that Savoy is in France. How right you are. What's more, the village of Megève, where I first came across it, is in France too. But you see, Savoy was Italian for hundreds of years and was only ceded to France in the last century. And I promise you that is positively the last history lesson I'll give you today. Oh, it's almost all done. This simple mixture of 8 potatoes, 1 pint of cream, and 8 ounces of cheese. Now, I'm going to feast on that marvelous vichyssoise. But first, let's cover the ingredients of our Savoyard. The 8 ounces of potatoes, the grated cheese, and the cream, salt, and pepper. So, we've covered a lot of distance today, from the potatoes' birthplace in Peru, all through Europe, from the French Alps to Holland, and with a look at New York over our shoulder. And so, I hope we meet again. Good eating.